Hello, happy Wednesday. As you can see, the channel here is a work in progress. I'm just sort of getting started. The first thing I would ask you guys is, what do you think of the name? I really didn't know what to call the new channel, and I think it's a little generic, but since the topic I have decided to take on is kind of broad, I suppose I need to keep it generic. But if you have any better suggestions, I'm totally open to hearing it. For right now, I'm just going to be doing kind of cell phone simple videos because I don't have any equipment. And I've been looking online to order a camera. Ultimately, I want to do like interviews and two people things, but obviously, I don't want to shoot guests with my cell phone. So that's why I'm calling these like prequels. Because I think the official launch will be once I have some better equipment under my belt here, and that'll probably happen maybe a month to 6 weeks from now. So it's going to be a minute. So that's just an update on where I am right now. And then it's just some things I thought about talking about. As I had mentioned before, like a lot of what I'm learning lately and wanting to learn more about comes from the fact that I'm reading a lot. I never thought I would read this much with a newborn in the house. I thought I wouldn't have time, but I actually have taken to reading on my phone while I'm nursing him at night, or when he wakes up in the middle of the night. I keep his lights off in his room, so I can't read physical books because the lights aren't on, but I can read like e-reader kind of stuff. So I've read like 14 books already this year, which is pretty impressive for me. But what I want to talk about today specifically is kind of some books that have challenged me as a reader. So, for example, like I think a lot of us, we go through high school and college, we get out of the habit of reading for fun because we just have so much we need to read, for school. And when I finally did get back into reading for fun in my 20s, I read a lot of what one might call fluff. My favorite is Elmore Leonard. I had to think about it. If you're not familiar, he wrote the books that went on to be Get Shorty, Jackie Brown, Justified, the TV show Justified. Those are all based on stuff that he's written. So it's con men, heists, a lot of snappy dialogue, action, stuff like that. I read some Dan Brown, also action, and Gregory Maguire, who wrote Wicked. So some action stuff and some, just kind of fun, lighthearted fiction. And so the first book that got me back into reading nonfiction that didn't feel like schoolwork when I tried to read it was actually a book called Life Itself, and it is the autobiography of Roger Ebert. I grew up being into movies and TV, so I, of course, grew up on Roger Ebert. Maybe many of you have memories of him on TV as well. I was a big fan. Weirdly enough, since he's a white gentleman who is a lot older than me, I always felt a connection to him because I knew he was a diehard fan of Steak and Shake, and so am I. So he grew up Catholic, but politically liberal, which is sort of like myself as well. So in reading his book, I found a lot to sympathize with, a lot that I just felt like I had in common with him. And of course, I had followed his blog, so I knew about his illness. The autobiography was written, obviously, before he died, so it covers the illness but not his death. Then they were filming a documentary based on it, and he did pass away during the filming of that. So if you see the documentary version, which I also recommend, but it does include his death, and it is a little hard to watch. I would go as far as saying gut-wrenching because it's just hard to see someone you grew up with and, you're used to him looking a certain way, and he's very emaciated and he's missing his jaw, which was taken later in his life, and he couldn't talk, and it was pretty hard to watch. But both the book and the movie are really good. So that's the first nonfiction piece I had read after college that, like I said, didn't feel like homework to me. And then, as I mentioned, I've always been into movies and TV. Growing up, I was very much a arts and language kind of person, not a math and science person. So a few years ago, I read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, and I read it with a book club for Women's History Month, so close to this time of year. And some of you watching this probably read it with me. And that was a real challenge for me because it did have a lot of science stuff, specifically like medical references and things about research and cell division and stuff like that. And it was such a good book, though. And that really challenged kind of my not only my reading but my sense of like what I'm capable of, because I'm so used to saying, oh, I'm not a science person or whatever, but like I read this and I loved it and I got through it and I feel like I understood it. So that's one I recommend to a lot of people when they're like, oh, I need something meaty to read or something, that I can really think about. I always recommend that one. It also has been turned into a movie. Oprah's in it. I don't know your feelings about Oprah, but she's pretty good in this. And that is rentable on Netflix. I think it was actually a Netflix movie, to be honest, but it's really good. So that's just two recommendations, not specifically of my favorite ever books, but just books that, like I said, challenged me as a reader, pushed me a little further into reading new things that I wasn't used to reading. But that I really, enjoyed, and I feel like they made me grow as a reader and helped me to take on some of the stuff I'm reading now. So if you have any book recommendations for me, always hit me up. Or if you want to share maybe something that challenged you, either challenged you as a reader or just challenged your beliefs about something political, religious, whatever, feel free to share. Okay, have a great week.